and they can hear you. So
Hi, everyone.
maybe you can share about where they would be able to find if they got excited of the if they really love this conversation, and they wanted to go and find you. Where would they find you?
Yeah, you can find me anywhere and everywhere. I'm on Facebook. But the easiest way to find me probably is more through my actual Facebook group. Just because my name's so long on Facebook, I feel like mission and a half just to find me.
So give us the
So my
give them the coordinates for our friends that are on my live. There's already a few people on here already. I can see them. So what what is the name of your company and your networking events and yeah, specifics. How can they find you?
Sure, yeah. So I'll say Instagram. Instagram's the easiest one. You just search Investor Girl Diana, and I'm there.
Investor
Facebook
Girl
is a
Diana. Investor Girl Diana.
Investor Girl Diana, yeah. And then on Facebook, like that, my group is easier. So if you do Re Canada, then you can find the group, and then you see me. I post all over the place, and my full name is in there.
Nice.
Then Lucia Lizarazo Rocha. So it's a little too long.
Yeah.
Although even another way you can find me is actually I do have a page, Investor Girl Diana, on Facebook. So actually, that's not really active. I just use that more for advertising. It's more my Facebook and my personal page, at least right now.
Nice. Nice. Well, I'm sure a lot of people are going to get value from this conversation, and I'm sure they're going to want to go and find. Is this being recorded?
Yeah, we will start recording it soon.
Yeah.
We will be recording it.
So it's going to be recorded, and so if they wanted to go find this recording, is there a place where is going to live?
This right now it doesn't go. It actually doesn't go anywhere. But we'll be probably posting like this year's networking events will probably get posted next year is what we're going to probably be doing. So we'll probably start sending them out next year.
Okay.
Is actually what will happen.
Okay, so let's say someone's watching right now and they're like, you know what? Like, I didn't know that there's an event that I can't see. I can't see who's on the other side. How can they go and find this event right now? Or can they even sign up right now?
It's already started, so they can't sign up right now. But
Sorry,
you can
guys.
definitely sign up for the next one.
Sign up to the next one. You're late to the party.
Yeah, too late for the party.
All right. Okay. Well,
Recording
good to
in
know.
progress.
Good to know.
There you go.
Oh, there we go. Recording in progress. There we go.
Now it's starting.
All right.
But so for our networking event, like that, I'm always posting it in my social media so people can find it. I think next month, I think a lot of people will be very interested because we're actually making it a mastermind. So it's going to be on people talking about their projects to other people. That one will be mainly about, we'll be doing like a 30 minutes where people can introduce themselves so everyone knows a little bit. I mean, we always do it now. We always do it during, you'll see, we'll be asking people about them, but this will be specifically focused towards the more of the one-on-ones, like more specifically the networking part, and actually like that people can, it'll be instead of 5 minutes, it'll be 10-minute breakout rooms. So we'll be giving each person 5 minutes to talk about themselves and ask, and either tell them both ways. So ask what they're looking for from someone, and then when the other person speaks, what they can provide for other people. So it'll be more of the last one to end the year off. The last one for the end of the year is basically going to be the mastermind, and new people coming in, people with experience, trying to match everyone up. So even with the matching, we'll probably be trying to be more strategic and matching certain types of people together so that everyone can meet, and like that, maybe beginners can be with experience with experience, like just mixing it all up. So I think next month will be a lot of fun.
All right. Well, you're doing a good job. You're out there. Your Instagrams. I'm liking everything I see. So good for you.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I know we're all excited to hear what you have to say. A lot of people have been messaging me. They're like, "Oh my God, Alfonso, you got Alfonso to come on."
I had to.
Everyone's excited.
I had to represent Latinos. Like I'm like, that's my girl right there, you know.
Awesome, awesome. Definitely is always nice to represent Latinos. I will also vouch for that. Let's
Nice.
so let's get so we have 5 minutes. Let's like that. Let's see who do we. Okay, let's start with actually Sam. I know. I mean, you already said it, but now that we have a few more people on, and even your friend too, if you want, if he disappeared. But if you guys both want to just say like that a little bit about yourselves, like what kind of investing you are doing and what you want to get into, what you'd like to learn, like whatever you like to share.
Gotcha. Okay. So my name is Sam. I live in Mississauga, Ontario. So right now, what I'm doing is I'm investing in duplexes and fourplexes. Alfonso, I saw some of your videos where you're talking about, why not go bigger? So that kind of got me, and I'm interested in learning more about that, right? My profession, I'm a mortgage specialist at TD Bank. So I know a bit about real estate, right? But I really want to get into the apartment. And then my cousin here, he has one property right now in Windsor with me, right? So he's also wants to learn.
Nice.
Awesome.
Well, you know what? I always tell people, like whatever you think you're capable of, you can do 10 times more. And so why not start there than putting all this, wasting time, right? I mean, time is the most valuable asset that we have. Why not go right to leveling up from the very beginning than spend all this time with duplexes and triplexes, which is nothing wrong with that. I mean, if you're buying a duplex and you're better off buying a duplex than not doing anything at all, right? But if you're in the game and you find, okay, I can do this, why not start leveling up?
Definitely, 100%.
Nice.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And or just even like having a mentor, right? Having like someone like you to show them the ropes just make things easier because you don't realize actually how much it impacts you because like that you realize like how small you're thinking until you have that person push you over the cliff and you're like, oh shit. Now I need to fly. So let's go with now Kunal. How are you? Do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, what you're in right now, what you're looking to learn, what you're getting into these days?
Yeah, absolutely. Hey guys, my name is Kunal. I'm a software developer by profession. My brother and I, we are into real estate investment together. Currently, I'm at 3 properties, one triplex, one fourplex, one duplex. I'm also doing a duplex conversion of my primary residence right now. The aim is to double my portfolio next year. I closed on my first property. Well, I always say, I forget to say it, but my brother and I couldn't have that myself. So my brother and I, we closed our first property in June. And the plan is one of them, the triplex, is going to be a perfect bird. And all of them are in Northern Ontario right now. The plan for next year is to get into bigger multifamilies, 6plexes, 8plexes. And I know, Alfonso, you're the guy for it. Yeah.
Awesome.
They call me the apartment building whisperer.
Yeah.
And it's very true. It's really funny. I know. I always by just the posts, I know who your students are. Just because the way they post, and I'm like, I bet you that's Alfonso's student.
Well, you know what? You I guess, the thing is, I think I resonate with a lot of people, right? Because a lot of people are totally capable of doing some, are making big moves. They just, people most of the time people tend to operate based on what they know and what they think they're capable of, right? But everybody's capable of so much more, and my whole life is about expansion. And so you need to be in an expansion mode. And I guess that's contagious. Success is more contagious than COVID-19. Right? So you hang around with other people that are expanding, that's gonna rub off on you. It's gonna be then you'll find yourself being thinking bigger, creating bigger, doing bigger things. It's fun.
It is, yeah, and that's one of the reasons for this networking event is that like giving people the opportunity to really get to know each other and start building that community because you don't realize like how it impacts you to have people around you, and like that everyone motivates. Like if you're having a down day or just like things aren't going well, you talk to someone else like, hey, what are you up to? And then just by what they're doing, or maybe they may give you a tip like, oh, this happened to you, like just do this, this, and this, and problem solve. And so there's so many things that community can just like help so much.
Like being around like-minded people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just to add to what I said, the main thing I'm looking to learn right now, all my deals have been 100% OPM, P note, promissory notes, and I use my brother and I, we use our line of credits that we got from multiple banks when we applied at the same time for our renovations. But if we need to get into bigger multifamilies, we just have to raise more capital. And we just had a very bad experience with the joint venture. We didn't close on the deal, but which is very stressful. So we know that we don't want to go in the joint venture route and just keep on solely owning it. So that's one of the things I want to learn, how to get into bigger multifamilies and still solely owning the property.
Well, there's everybody talks about OPM, right? And nobody ever talks about LOPM, right? So everybody talks about OPM, other people's money, but nobody ever talks about LOPM, losing other people's money. So it all starts with, you have to know what you're doing, whether you're doing joint ventures, raising private capital, if you're going to be just borrowing all the funds. Either way, it can be done, but it starts with knowing what you're doing. When you make that jump from twosies and threesies to like 7 units, 10 units, it's a whole other game, right? You have to know what you're doing because the stakes are that much higher, right? The risk is that much higher. Now, the reward is that much higher, but it starts with the education.
Sure. Yeah, thanks, Fonzo.
Hey, no worries.
Okay, so we're gonna now mute everyone, and now we'll actually get started. And like as we go, you'll see I'm gonna ask other people, so don't worry, the rest of you guys will be asking about you guys as we go through. But now it's all about Alfonso. Thanks for coming on. We're so excited to hear about what you have to tell us about multi-units. And so let's start with, just before you start your presentation, your speech, is just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Like I said, I'm the apartment building whisperer. I'm just joking when I say that, but it's something that I'm passionate about. I came to this country with nothing. I was a landing refugee back in 1986, and I wasn't a very good student. We talk about community and we talk about being around the right people, like-minded people. Unfortunately, when I was young, I hung around the wrong people and ended up in trouble. Ended up with people that brought me to down the wrong road, and I ended up homeless at 15. And I had a life-changing moment at 17 years old when I became a father. And that was extremely impactful for me, because that, for the very first time in my life, I discovered purpose. And if you know the power of purpose, like discovering that why, that reason why you want to do something, that can be extremely powerful for someone, especially at 17 years old. And so at 17 years old, I opened I'm a father. I got a job, didn't work out with the job, so I started a business. And that business ended up being a national business all across Canada. By the time I was 21, making millions. One thing that I discovered was that I didn't have much financial education. And so when there was a downturn in the economy, it almost took me out. And what I ended up learning was that, number one, I had no financial education. I was not putting away money. Of course, I was doing really well with my business, but I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't have reserves, so I was not able to withstand the ups and downs of an economy. And so then I started reading. I started learning about wealthy people, and I discovered a few things. People tend to have multiple streams of income, and that was one thing that I discovered, that I was very vulnerable in my business. I only had one stream of income, and so when that industry, was down, my lifestyle was down. Everything went down, and so I saw that, and I also saw that for the most part, people that have wealth or accumulate wealth have real estate. That was really interesting to me. And even more interesting was that the wealthiest people don't brag about the triplexes and the fourplexes they own. They own apartment buildings, they own commercial real estate. And so at that very young age, I was around 24 years old, 24, 23, 24, I decided to get into real estate full time. And what I saw was the economy of scale, right? So multiple units, and so I went after multifamilies from the very beginning, and here I am, right, with a portfolio across Canada, approaching 600 doors, teaching people, inspiring people all across North America to do the same, and so here I am.
That's awesome. That's great to hear. So we're so excited to hear what you have to say. Do you need the screen share? Will you be doing a
No, well, I thought
I
I thought it was going to be more question answer. Like I thought you were just gonna, because someone from I think it was on your team, would ask me, what are the questions?
Oh, well, there
Well,
were
I
points
mean-
that you were going to talk about, but you can talk about those points.
Yeah, well, I mean, we can whatever you'd like. I don't have a formal presentation prepared, right? But I can talk about multifamilies until you go blue in the face. I mean, this is what I love to do, right? I mean, this is what I've done for the past 20 years. I've been mostly buying apartment buildings, and there's a reason why. So I was doing a lot of multifamily, but there's a time in my career that I kind of leveled up, and maybe we can have a discussion, and everybody here is free to ask questions, so we'll make it really interactive. And so I told you that my business went through a downturn, right? And I almost lost everything. I learned some lessons during that time. For example, the economy goes up and down, right? When I started in business back in 1996, there was a recession. I didn't know. I didn't even know the meaning of the word. I was a teenager. But as I was expanding my business, the economy was expanding, and my business was doing really well. So in my mind, I was like, that's the way it's always going to be. It's always going to be doing this, right? And it feels like that. When you're in expansion, it feels like there's no way that this is going to ever stop. And so what happened to me was that I was hit with a downturn in the economy. So shortly after 9/11, there was a correction, a mini correction in the economy, especially in my industry, and people's spending habits changed. Everything changed, and the result of that was me almost losing everything because I wasn't prepared. I wasn't prepared for a downturn. I didn't have any reserves. I didn't have any. I didn't even fathom ever having to deal with a downturn. Now, I'm in my early 20s. I'm 21, 22, 23. And now I don't have any other options. And so what I also noticed is there was a lot of opportunities during that time that I couldn't participate in because I had no cash. I just wasn't ready. And so when 2008 came, so from that time, 2002, 2003, I mean, we had a massive expansion in real estate. And my business was mostly like 7 units, 10 units, 13 units. And I remember 2007, 2006, we didn't have Zoom. We would have to go into a room with other people, right? Old school. and these rooms would be packed with other investors. I mean, they would be packed. And then 2008 came, and we had that U.S. crash. So in the U.S. it was a market crash. In Canada it was a correction, right? But it's not like the prices really went down. Is that the money disappeared? There was no more money in the market. So we're going into 2009. For when it comes to apartment buildings, there was just no money available, and the only money available for buying apartment buildings was CMHC insured mortgages. Okay, and I remember going back to those same networking events, and they're empty. It's just a few of us, multifamily guys. We're like, hey, what happened to all the wholesalers? What happened to all the flippers? What happened to all these people? And all those people were gone. No one had any interest in, no private money, no P notes, nothing. No one had any interest in real estate. Everybody was scared. I would say very much comparable to March and April of 2020, right? March and April of 2020, everybody's scared. No one knows what to do. And so that's what it was back in 2009. If you were an investor, especially if you were like a really full-time investor like I was. And so all the money disappeared. The only mortgages that were available were CMHC insured mortgages. But I had a run-in with CMHC in 2002. I did a mortgage with CMHC, and I said, this is so painful. So I'm not talking about the traditional CMHC owner-occupied type mortgage. We're talking about commercial CMHC insured mortgage. But it was so painful, I said, never do I want to do that again. If you remember, if you've ever done any CMHC commercial mortgage, you've ever heard of it, you know that they have their own criteria, and they always come in under value. And so, I said, well, let's just try it. And as I was going through the process of a CMHC mortgage, now, when there's no one buying, you can take your time, right? And that's the beauty of it. When there's no one buying, you can take your time, and you can do a CMHC mortgage that takes like 3 to 4 months. And I remember asking a lot of questions that I never asked before. Everybody gets upset that CMHC mortgages come in under value. But no one ever asks why. Like, why is that, right? And so I started to talk to a lot of the underwriters, and I asked simple questions like, why do you guys always come in under value? You're saying 85-15 loan to value, but by the time we're done, it's like 70-30. And they're like, well, there's certain economic factors that we look at. And at the end of it, we're insuring a mortgage, and we don't want to lose money, right? The government of Canada does not want to lose money. And it hit me. I'm like, I don't want to lose money. Why would anybody want to lose money, right? And what happens is people don't calculate. They don't calculate their numbers correctly, right? Everybody's hoping to make money. And I say this all the time. You're smoking the hopium, right? You're hoping, you're wishing, you're buying something, and you just want to hold on to it, and you hope it goes up in value. You hope it cash flows. And so at that time, I said, well, I'm going to adopt their underwriting philosophies, and I'm going to make those philosophies my own criteria. And so every single asset after that, I was buying it in the same way a CMHC underwriter would look at that deal. And so what ended up happening was, it was like turbocharge. Like, I went out and I could look at a property, and it's, if I know I'm not sure if people here on this call have seen The Matrix, okay? But if you've seen The Matrix, if you haven't seen The Matrix, you should go watch The Matrix. If you've seen it, you remember that scene in the movie where all he saw at some point was just like, he saw like weird. He saw the weird numbers, and then he could figure out the Matrix. He he could see like the mechanics of the matrix. And then he could manipulate the matrix. And then he could control the matrix. He could fly. He could do all these things. That's the way I felt in 2010, 2011. Like I was flying. I was buying multiple properties. And the most powerful thing about that is that the majority of the deals were super creative because the marketplace, all the money just disappeared from the marketplace. And so now I had this run, and this is, where I'm at right now. March 13th, 2020. And now this is the real test. This is the real test. Because forever in my career, with my investors, my students, my employees, my family, anybody who ever asked me about real estate, I'm always going to say, and I always said the same thing, apartment buildings, this is an Armageddon-proof business. Because that was my mindset. Back in 2001, when I almost lost all my business, I said, I'm going to create a secondary stream of income. But I want that secondary stream of income to be indestructible. And this is why I went specifically after multifamily in apartment buildings. The economy of scale, the idea that you could spread the risk amongst multiple units, the idea that if one person moves out, it's like no one's going to be eating spaghetti for the rest of the month, because a lot of people, they have one, if they have a duplex, they have one person move out, you're now 50% vacant. If someone moves out of my 50 unit building, it's a non-event. And so all of those things is why I went to apartment buildings in the first place. I said, this is an Armageddon proof. We can go through a recession. This is going to be Armageddon proof. And then March 13th, 2020. When I knew it was going to be different? When they shut down the NBA. And I was like, how is that possible? How can they shut down the NBA? I'm like, there's something weird here. You know what I mean? In my heart, I knew that I had to take massive action, right? Because, we didn't know what was going to happen. If you go back to those 2 weeks, from the middle of March up until March 1st, this is like March 1st was like judgment day for people in the apartment building space. We didn't know if people were going to pay their rent. So now I'm thinking like I felt, and I'm always, I like to be as vulnerable as I can be with everyone, but I felt massive pressure and I had to take massive action, right? Because there was no way we're going to go to April 2nd and people are not going to pay their rent. So I have a responsibility to my employees. I have a responsibility to my family, my investors, my tenants. And so we went, you guys remember Trudeau every afternoon at noon, he would have his address. That's the same. Emails, newsletters, we're doing an address, meetings, whatever we had to do to make sure that April 1st, we were going to be collected. We didn't know there was going to be a CERB. We didn't know any of that. All we knew is that we had to communicate with our tenants. And I think partly that's the reason why we're successful. Well, partly is because we take care of our people. I mean, whether they're tenants or employees or, our investors, we're going to take care of everyone. And so all of that work paid off April 1st because April 1st came and we were, I think, 97% collected across Canada. And it was just like, whew, right? It was just like one of those moments, right? And we were more collected April 1st than we've ever been in our entire history of investing because we were so on people. And then I remember the miscommunication the leadership in this country telling people, don't worry, you don't have to pay your rent. It's going to be all right, you know? And because we're going to give, everybody's going to get mortgage breaks, you know? And so we had to combat all that communication. And so we were in full control of all of, you see an apartment building is like a little mini city. It's a little mini town, right? And there's going to be a mayor. And if that mayor, doesn't hear communication, if people are ghosted, if they feel alone, they start to talk amongst themselves. And then there'll be one ringleader and they're like, hey, no job, no rent. And I know personally people that their entire building got together and did not pay their rent. But I would have to say mostly that is a result of not communicating with your tenants, not updating them, not combating the press, the media, what the media is feeding them. You have to combat that with real stats. And it came down to this, it's true. It's true that, the landlord tenant board is closed. It's true that, we can't do anything if you don't pay your rent. But a lease is a legal binding agreement. And at some point, the rent will be due, right? At some point in the future, the rent will be due. And so what are you going to do? Where are you going to live if you are so behind here and you ruin your chances of getting a place anywhere else? And there's programs, we'll help you, this and that. I had one guy, he says to us, I was on the phone with EI for 8 hours. And we're like, okay. So what? He's like, well, I had to hang up. We're like, what else are you doing? Well, nothing. But we're like, yeah, your job now is to be on EI, call them indefinitely until you get someone on the other line, right? And so all of these, it's like we had to coach people. But the result was we collected all our rents. And then after all of that was done, I noticed people were kind of relaxed. And it gave me the feeling of 2008 all over again, right? Where everybody was just like, no, I'm going to figure out what's going to happen. There was spectators, right? There was people that, you know what? I'm just going to see what happens, right? I'm going to wait it out. I'm going to see what's going to happen. And there was people that expanded during that time. There was people that took massive action during that time. Between the months about the recovery, right? I talked about a recession, and I've talked about it on my YouTube channel many times. And people are like, what recession? You missed it. You missed it. They talk about an L recovery, a V recovery. It was a check mark. It went boom, right? It went boom. And so April, May, and June, even July of 2020, people were still watching the game. We were in the game. And so between April to June, we took the most action. We bought the most amount of inventory between that time than we ever did in our entire career. All of those moves, never mind the existing portfolio, but all of the activity that we did during the time between April, May, and June, all of those buildings, millions of dollars, they have doubled in value since last April, May, and June. And so it's all about expansion. You have to be in an expansion mode. You have to be able to expand your mind. Now, there's going to be a lot of times where you are going to be extremely uncomfortable. You're on the right path. If you find yourself uncomfortable, you're on the right path. That's where you should be all of the time, because that means you're expanding, you're growing. You have to be able to take educated risk. Okay, we started this. We started this conversation. We talked about education, right? And the value of education. You have to be able to take educated risk, but you have to take risk. You have to take action. You have to take action, because if you don't take risks, you can't grow. And if you can't grow, you're not going to feel fulfilled, because fulfillment comes from growing. If you look at a plant, if a plant is not growing, it's dying. And so we get, as human beings, we get fulfillment from growing. That's when we feel like we're alive, we're doing things. It's like, oh, it's a bit uncomfortable. This is why people don't love their jobs, because they sit at a desk and it's the same thing every single day. There's no growth. They're not going to feel fulfilled. And so to feel fulfilled, you have to grow. And in order to grow, you have to take risks. You got to be uncomfortable. And so if you can be in a situation where you are fulfilled in life, if you are fulfilled, then you can be happy. And that's the point, right? Fulfillment, happiness. Because if you can't be happy, then what are we doing here, right? What's the point? And so it all starts with getting a little bit uncomfortable. Not a lot. I'm not saying go out and try to, hurt yourself. Get education, okay? Get the right education. Take educated moves, but move forward. As long as you're taking steps, taking steps forward, taking action, you are in expansion mode. And what happens is, if you take a rubber band, and you stretch it like this, you stretch it as much as you can. When you let it go, it's going to compress, but it will be bigger than when it started. And then you stretch it again, and then you let it go again, and then it'll go back to, it will contract to a smaller elastic band, but it'll be bigger than it was even before. And then slowly you start to expand. Slowly you realize that, wait a minute, I have like all of these apartment buildings. I got a system in place. I got people in place. I got awesome tenants. I got awesome investors. And this is awesome, right? This is working. Now, once you get there, here is the trap. You think you've done something. But again, if you don't continue to expand, you'll start contracting at that point. So now it's time to go to really level up. And this is where we're at now, right? So our goal now for the next 5 years is to get to 7,500 doors. So we're no longer looking at the 30 units, 40 units, 50 units, 60 units. We're going to start looking at 200 units, 300 units, 400 units, 500 units. And people always ask me the same question, like, Alfonso, like, why do you need that? Like, why do you need 7,500 doors? Because most people, like, they think about, owning 3 doors, and that's just overwhelming. But why do you set such a big goal? And I think we should all set big goals for ourselves. All of us, every single person on this call, every single person that's watching, all of the people that are watching on YouTube, on YouTube Live, everyone should set big goals for themselves. Well, the next question is, well, how do we know? How do we know it's a proper goal for ourselves? Like, how do we know? Well, here's what a good goal is. A good goal should scare you. Okay, you should be scared of achieving that goal. It should excite you, and it needs to be worthy of you. That's a good goal. It should scare you, it should excite you, and it needs to be worthy of you. But not for the goal itself, but to see the person that you're going to become on the way to achieving that goal. That's the most valuable thing, is the journey. Right? So set a big target. Not for the money, not for the notoriety, not for anything, but to see who you're going to become on the way to achieving that goal. And so, if you watch some of my videos, you'll see like a lot of the things that I share with people, it's all about expansion. If you are in a situation where you want to buy a duplex or a triplex, hey, why not level up to a 6 unit or a 7 unit? If you're now doing 7 units or 8 units, hey, why not level up to 10 units, right? Just get a little bit uncomfortable. And if you live there all of the time, then you're going to avoid some of the time wasting that I spent. I spent 20 years building this portfolio, building this life for myself. You don't have to spend 20 years. My 20 years can become your 1 or 3 years.
That's awesome. I have a question for you, actually. So what about comparing? So, because you said now you're going bigger, right?
Yes.
So what would you say that is the difference between smaller multi-units? Like, what are your different the risks that you now, like, is there any differences between the smaller multis and going to bigger multis?
Well, you need a solid team, right? The bigger you get, the better the team needs to be, or else you can't take on any more business. And so with the team comes the process. Do you have systems in place that would allow you to scale up to that point? Because without systems, you're going to be limited to whatever you can do, right? And if you're not an organized person, then you need to hire people. The key to success is to find the people that play at the things that you work hard at. Find the people in your life that play at the things that you work hard at, right? So like numbers, accounting, administrative work. I have 2 admins here in our office, and one of them said, Alfonso, I love administrative work. Who says that, right? But like someone that really loves administrative work. And so when they're doing administrative work, they're playing, they're in the playground, right? They're fulfilled. And so you have to now find a team that has all of the things that you are weak in. And so there's certain skills that I have. I can talk, I can communicate. I know how to analyze deals. I love to negotiate. I love but that's one part. But now comes the management. Now comes, the day-to-day stuff, and the plumbers, and the people that are not, the tenants that are not mentally sound, and all of this other stuff. And so if you don't have a strong enough team, then you will never be able to grow to the next level. It's almost going to be impossible, right? And if you do, it's going to be a mess. It's going to be a big mess. And so, this is why I talk about, and I love that question. I believe in the long-term goals, right? So I just briefly talked about 5 years from today. Elon Musk has goals that he won't even be alive. He won't even be alive to see those goals come to life, right? The longer you can plan, right? So if you have 10-year goals, 15-year goals, 20-year goals, the better you're going to be today, because now you see, okay, I have a 10-year vision or a 5-year vision of what I want to do. Most people tend to overestimate what they can accomplish in 1 year, but they grossly underestimate what they can accomplish in 5. Because in 5 years, you can go through a full life transformation. You won't even recognize yourself. You won't even recognize your business. And so if you have a 5-year goal, let's start with 5 years. And if you can break it down to bite-sized pieces, right? So your 5-year goal comes in, you break it down into like, what do you have to do yearly? And what do you got to do every 6 months? And what do you got to do every quarter? And what do you got to do every month? And what do you got to do every week? And what do you got to do today to get to that 5-year goal. So now you can go out and create a company that is based on your 5-year goal. The biggest mistake I see a lot of entrepreneurs make, and real estate entrepreneurs, is that they don't hire early enough. They don't engage enough people early enough, and so they can never scale their business. And so whether at the very beginning you need an admin, you need an assistant, but you're thinking to yourself, well, I only have like a duplex. What would I need an assistant for, right? But you have to have the team in place for you to be able to take on more inventory. A lot of the time, people just can't absorb that type of inventory because they're not ready. And you're better off being ready for an opportunity and not getting the opportunity than getting the opportunity and you're just not ready, because that's going to be a mess and it'll be unfortunate. It'll be really unfortunate. So in terms of the question, you know what? The obviously things become complex, but if you can manage a 10-unit building, the same idea is in a 50-unit building, except you need a good, solid team in place.
Okay. And so what about then, let's say for someone that hasn't done multi-unit, but maybe has like a single family or duplex or triplex, what do you feel is then the difference moving up to like those bigger multis?
Oh, big difference. Cash flow. So, the same reason why we all go to Costco, right? We reduce the price per unit by buying in bulk. I mean, that's, economics 101, right? I mean, buy in bulk, wholesale, you buy in bulk and you reduce the price per unit. What most people don't realize is that the single unit, the single family house, the townhome, the condo, that is the most expensive piece of real estate you will ever buy, because the values are based on comparables. Meaning, what is someone down the street selling for based on the emotions of the economy and where is it a buyer's market or a seller's market? When it comes to multifamily, it's all about the numbers. And the bank or the lenders, that's the way they see it. They're going to analyze that deal based on the numbers. So not only is the single the most expensive piece of real estate, it's also the least performing, which is why the bank, or the lenders, they say to you, hey, you can only have 3 or 4, right? Because as long as you're able to feed those mortgages, we'll lend you, because they know that those single family homes are liabilities versus a building. When you look at an apartment building, the bank, the lenders are looking at a business. They're looking at the economic performance of this building. So they're no longer looking at you as an individual and what you can afford, your debt to income ratio. They're looking at the building as an asset, right? And so that's a whole other way of qualifying. The building qualifies, not you. And so what does that mean? That means I can buy as many buildings as I possibly can, as long as I know how to do the numbers. This is why I was telling you my story about CMHC. I learned that they were underwriting their numbers in a very certain way, and I started to adopt that style. It's almost like I can package those deals for CMHC. And so the difference in the single, hey, more cash flow, cheaper cost per unit, easier to manage, right? Because if you have 3 single family homes, you got 3 roofs, 3 furnaces, 3 hot water tanks, right? If you have a 6-unit building, well, 1 roof, 1 parking spot. I mean 1 parking lot. I mean, everything is just in one place. It's economy of scale. And so the financing is also easier. So financing, economy of scale, the idea you can spread your risk amongst more units, and the idea that you can buy, the more you buy, the less per unit you pay. To me, those are all reasons to get into the multifamily versus the singles. Now, there is ways of making the singles work, right? But you most of the time you have to force it. You have to make it work. Like, oh, student housing. I met a guy. He's like, you know what you're saying. I love what you're saying, Alfonso, but you know I'm different. I'm like, how so? He's like, you see, I bought a house and I rented out all the rooms, and I sleep on the couch. I'm like, okay, well, that's one way of doing it. Until you figure out you're coming home to a bunch of dudes, and so it. You know what I mean? That's not really, you know, it's not really scalable, right? I mean, some people do Airbnb. Some people do. There's a lot of care homes. There's ways of making that single family house work, but it goes against all laws of physics. Like even as kids, who remembers? Show you by a show of hands, who remembers playing Monopoly? Okay, where in Monopoly does it say buy that single and stay there? What's the objective of Monopoly?
Buy a lot of houses.
Level up to a red hotel, right? And so, I mean, it's to me, it just made sense, and that's kind of where I live.
That's awesome. That's great to hear. And now that you're talking about basically getting the funding, like when you do your analysis, like what do you look for to see that, you know, this is a good property that will get, like you said, like you'll be able to get, I'm assuming it's commercial financing,
Yeah.
and the funding, right? Finding those investors, like what kind of analysis do you do to be able to make sure like this is a good property and you know you're going to be able to fund it?
Most realtors, God bless them, right? They're trying to service their client and they're doing what they're supposed to do. They'll give you minimal amount of information. And your job as an investor is to underwrite that deal. And so I love using the word underwrite because this is what, you know, the deal is going to be underwritten multiple times. The insurance broker is going to underwrite it. The mortgage underwriter will underwrite it. Everybody's going to underwrite your deal. But it starts with you, right? So there's certain omissions that are left out that people don't really consider. They don't consider vacancy. And most of the time people say, wait a minute, there's zero vacancy in Ontario, or 1% or 2%. Well, it's not always going to be that way, right? And you know, if you hit a situation where you have a high vacancy, you need to be prepared to be able to withstand that. And so, isn't it nice that it's already built into your formula? Most people don't talk about property management. They don't talk about a caretaker on site. They don't talk about repairs and maintenance and capital expenditures. And so those are the types of things that like I teach my students. It's like the deal looks good the way the realtor's presenting it. And don't get mad at the realtor because that's the realtor's job. The realtor's job is to sell the property on behalf of the seller. They're doing that job. They're doing their job. Your responsibility as an investor is to do the numbers correctly. And so once we put in all our contingencies and once we run it down through our formula, at the end of it, there has to be cash flow. That's the requirement, okay? There has to be cash flow. And the way some people are buying properties now is like, well, you know, it's going to go up in value. No. If that's your investing strategy, you're doing it wrong. You're a speculator. You're not an investor. You're smoking that hopium again. You're hoping it's going to go up in value so you'll make money. And so at the end of it, there has to be cash flow. And specifically for my investors, it needs to be minimum 5% cash on cash. 5% cash on cash. and an overall return on investment. If we're looking at all the different profit centers, like the mortgage pay down and the appreciation, minimal appreciation, but we'll still consider it. All the other profit centers, we need to be at close to 20% overall return on investment.
That's awesome. That's great to know. And what about, so for people like that I feel like leveling up is very scary. Mainly, I feel like you're hitting a money mindset shift, that you're going through a new one, right? You're hitting a new ceiling because now you're dealing with bigger numbers.
Yes.
How do people get over that when they're, trying to find their investors to help them out?
Yeah, so that's a beautiful question. That's an excellent question, because it's all mindset. That's what it is. It's just more zeros, right? You guys on this call look kind of young. I'm 44. I remember when gas, let me see who remembers when gas was 43 cents. No one on this call, just me. Raise your hand if you remember gas being at 43 cents. Let me see. No one remembers. Okay, my friend there, he said 10 cents? 50 cents. 55. Okay.
55.
Okay, 55. Well, 55, 43, we're pretty close. And I remember it started to creep up, right? So this was at some point in the 90s, it started to creep up, 60 cents, 63 cents. One day, guys, it went up to 75 cents. And everybody freaked out. Everybody panicked. Everybody it was like, oh my God, can you even fathom that one day gas will go up to even $1? No way. It's impossible. No way. That's not possible. And that day came. And the gas was at $1 and everybody freaked out. This is crazy. How can we pay $1? But then it continued. $1.05, $1.10, $1.20. If you feel a premium, you'll know that the gas went over $2, right? And then one day it went back to $1 and everybody's like, so cheap. And then it went down to, I think in last April, it went down to 80 cents. In some places, it went down even a little bit below 80 cents. And people are like, they're giving gas away. And all it is that your mind becomes anchored to certain numbers. So once your mind becomes anchored to a number, whatever number that you were looking at before, it's no longer part of your reality, because now your mind is at $1.20. That's gas, right? And so that's the same thing with real estate. If you want to expand your mindset, do this challenge. For the next week, only look at $10 million deals and up. Only look at $10 million deals. Only have those conversations with people. Again, I said, it's a challenge. Don't go out and buy anything, okay? There's still a level of education that you need. But, and if you need my help, we can have that conversation. But just go out there and start talking to only $10 million. Only look at $10 million deals. Only look at 25-unit buildings. And then what's going to happen is that after the week, your mind becomes adjusted. At first, you're going to feel like a fraud. You're going to feel like, they talk about the imposter syndrome. You're going to be talking to these realtors. You're going to be so self-conscious. You're going to hang up the phone and you're like, what the hell did I just say? You know what I mean? Like you fumbled over your words. You're going to be nervous. But then the next call is going to get better. The next call is going to get better. The next call is going to get better. And then all of a sudden, you find yourself accustomed to $10 million deals.
That's awesome. Those are great tips because that is very true what you're saying. You know, you feel like a fraud and you'll feel like an imposter when you're starting to get into things. You feel like it, yeah. So that's such a great tip. You guys should all do it. I'll probably be doing it too. 'Cause I definitely do not look at $10 million homes, so I'm gonna be or $10 million buildings. I mean,
It just like it will force you to expand. Being uncomfortable forces you to expand, right? And then when you go back, like remember, like an elastic band, you get the elastic band originally is small, and then you stretch it out, and you let it go. It contracts, but it's now bigger than it was before. And so if you only looking at $10 million deals, you know maybe you're $1 million deal. But if you challenge yourself to only look at $10 million deals, when you go back to your $500,000 or $700,000 deal, it's gonna be like a piece of cake, right? You're gonna think